As indicated before, I am thrilled to be here, as are many of my colleagues at KnowledgeWorks and many of our partners. And thank you to all of you for joining in this important convening so that we will have conversations about the future. I talked about KnowledgeWorks, and at KnowledgeWorks, we believe learners deserve experiences that center their needs, their interests, and their passions. They deserve to feel like they belong and have the power to make choices about their future, not just about what they will be, but who. Learning that's personalized and competency-based is how we make that happen. I'm excited to learn from all of you, and I'm excited about the opportunity for us to learn from each other. Later, I'm going to introduce you to a magnificent group of young people who are coming from different parts of the country who represent K-8 and higher education. And most importantly, it's important for us to remember it's the reason why we are all here. So everyone has their reason for getting into education. I've often asked educators, system leaders, community members, policymakers, what brought you into education? And all of them will respond with the same themes: helping young people achieve their potential, making a difference, and building a better future. And so hopefully we're going to be all here talking about building better futures. And let's face it, in order to build better futures, it takes resilience, especially now. And Virgil and Beth touched on this, especially now when things are changing so rapidly and everything feels hard. But here you are, still showing up, still doing the work, and still believing in what's possible. But that's why I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because of opportunities like this conference to share, to support, to lift, and to learn from each other. And I feel a deep sense of urgency. And I feel a deep sense of urgency to act. Why? Because the future isn't just coming, it's already here. And in a few minutes, they're going to be sitting on the stage right next to me. So, are we ready to start talking about the future? All right. All right. So, this slide is meant to represent those no good, very bad days. And those are the days where they're just small annoyances or occurrences that are just headaches. And they just begin to stack up. And they stack up, we solve one, only for another one to pop up. And so an example of that will be something like the following. Woke up late because I hit the snooze button and fell back to sleep. But nonetheless, got up still in enough time to get dressed and get to the important meeting. But my outfit that I was thinking about wearing was either wrinkled or I forgot to pick it up from the cleaners. Well, that's okay. I'll just choose another one. I'll get that outfit on and get out the door on time, still to make it to my meeting, my important meeting. But I get to my car, or I use a ride share. My car doesn't have gas, or the ride shares are all backed up. So make it to the station or call another ride share, make it still able to make it to work on time. Make it to work, get to the meeting, lo and behold, not enough materials for the meeting. So then I have to scurry around, get the materials. Nonetheless, the meeting goes off just fine. Then later that evening, going to cook a great dinner, but it burns, and you adjust. So you order out, or you go out, or you pick leftovers from the fridge. We all have days like that. And generally, the next day is better. Why? Because we're resilient. And resilience, it's a word that we use a lot, particularly as we talk about our learners. How do we help them bounce back? How do we prepare them for a future that's constantly changing? But one thing I don't hear us talk about enough, is the resilience of educators. Our educational system relies on your resilience. You adapt, you innovate, you make things work. And you do that work because you care, and because you're resilient. And because of you, learners thrive. And so it's time to stop relying on resilience, but instead start thinking about redesign. Why? Because we can't keep relying on your resilience to hold up a system that's breaking. The system is literally hitting its limits. Not because you stopped being resilient, but because we've asked too much without changing the foundation. So at KnowledgeWorks, we released our 7th forecast. It looks out 10 years, building on signals of change we're seeing right now. What's clear? Those little things, those little headaches, those annoyances, those little things are beginning to add up. And they're pointing to a future that demands transformation, not just adaptation. Resilience alone isn't enough. The world is shifting fast, and education must shift with it. Educators are under a lot of pressure to respond to change. What excites me is that many are starting to ask, how can we actually shape it? We use futures thinking at KnowledgeWorks to explore what's next. We help education leaders like all of you engage in conversations about shaping the future. An invitation to everyone is to consider ways things could change. Our forecast identifies 4 drivers of change already reshaping the future of learning. Just a shameless plug for a session that's going to be here at the symposium. My colleague, Jason Swanson, is going to be leading a session on our forecast. And I encourage as many people as possible to go to that session because he'll be talking more about this. But these drivers of change that are already reshaping the future of learning, these aren't distant possibilities. They're happening right now. So driver number 1, AI. Shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. AI is no longer just a tool. It has been evolving quickly. It's becoming a thought partner, a tutor, even a social-emotional companion. As AI evolves, it will challenge how we think about skill development, assessment, and human relationships. What happens when students learn alongside AI? What does mastery mean with AI? The second driver are everyday disruptions. Climate-driven school closures, cyber attacks, social media controversies, disruptions are becoming the norm. Increase in the small and large-scale disruptions means the old playbook is not enough. We need adaptive strategies. Stability won't come from resisting change, it will come from embracing new ways of leading and new ways of learning. The third driver, eroding public institutions. Public systems are changing, let's face it. Whether it's a crisis in funding, whether things are being privatized, confidence that's declining, budgets are tightening, competition is growing. And so public education must also redefine itself. And if we don't act, we risk losing the public trust that our public education system depends on. Final condition, the relevance gap. Young people are telling us every day, loudly, that school doesn't feel connected to their lives. And this concern about relevance isn't new. I remember experiencing it decades ago as a student and hearing it from my students as a teacher, as a principal, and as a superintendent. Young people now are worried about things that are impacting their community. They're worried about the economy, mental health, climate change. They want to make an impact. They're socially aware and digitally fluent. And so if education doesn't meet them where they are, we risk losing them altogether. So these drivers of change are not just challenges, they're invitations. And they're invitations to move from resilience to redesign. So, as we prepare to hear from these fabulous young people this morning, let's listen with these drivers of change in mind. Let's ask ourselves, what kind of future are we building for students? And more importantly, what kind of future are they asking us to build? So what do? We stop patching, we start building. We listen, we design systems that support resilience, not systems that demand it. And we start today. As you listen to the students, think about what it means for the systems we have built in the past, and the ones that we need to build next. So now, if you would, please join me in welcoming our young people to the stage this morning. Josh. So thrilled to have the three of you here with us this afternoon. And I was going to introduce you, but I'm just going to ask a question and then you can respond to the question. And so I'd like all of you to introduce yourself and talk about where you go or have gone to school or went to school, and talk about your experience with student agency. So we can start at either end. All right.
Hi, I'm Emma Tam. I am originally from Australia. I'm currently based in New York, and I attended Minerva University, which some of you might be familiar with, the Minerva Universe. It's based in San Francisco, but we traveled to a different country each semester with students from all over the world, and our professors were fully remote as well. And after graduating last year, I joined Ben Nelson to start working on Minerva Baccalaureate, which is all about bringing this model of skills-centered education and assessment down to the high school and, as of this fall, middle school level. So we're really excited to have just launched our middle school program as well. And in terms of learner agency, we were talking earlier about how it's really that what is water kind of concept to us, because we've had the privilege of just being fully immersed in this environment where learner agency is so foregrounded. And for me, initially, I think at the university level, that really meant independence and the ability to think critically and develop my own purpose in my own learning and acquire the skills and knowledge to pursue that purpose. But I think now working with such incredible colleagues and finding out more about these incredible learning communities, I'm starting to reorient my understanding of learner agency towards this recognition of interconnectedness, especially in this world of radical individualism. And if we see agency as this capacity for change, I think the emergent properties and expansiveness that are possible when we recognize how interconnected our systems and our communities are, and how we can use these human connections to make possible this change. On the theme of unity, as Beth and Virgil spoke about, I think that to me enables true agency.
Fantastic. Wow, I didn't even have to say it. I was like, give it up for Emma, right?
I'm Joshua Cañedo. I'm from Desert View High School in Tucson, Arizona, and student agency for me.
Wait. Recognize Josh from high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Student agency for me has been the amazing opportunity to have capital in my learning. As a kid, it's hard to, have any say in what goes on in these systems, in these rooms with adults, right? It's always, I'm here to listen to the adult, they're the expert. But it's been me having choice and control over my own education and learning. And I think it's even beyond the students. It's something that we could foster in districts, in our teachers, in our principals, in our superintendents. As a district in Desert View, Sunnyside Unified District, it's been something that our superintendent didn't just tell us what to do, right? Nobody's telling us what to do. It's something that we know we're in this process together. We're all 32 schools are learning different aspects, and we're applying these different aspects that we're good at with other schools in areas they might be weak at. And that's exactly what we need to have in our classrooms. Instead of it being so competitive, me wanting the right answer, somebody else having the wrong answer, we're working towards this together as a common goal with our teacher, and we're all partners in our learning.
Serenity?
Hi, I'm Serenity Lim Pham, and I go to New Harmony High School, located in New Orleans. Student agency to me means we learn how to critically think about situations and how we can have solutions to them and all that. We're also taught how to come together as a community and work with each other and how our decisions affect our community, and that's what student agency means to me.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And I want to come back to a couple of points that were made earlier. And there was a point about interconnectedness that Emma, you talked about. And I want you to say more about just kind of how did you experience that? And how, in your opinion, should young people experience that?
Yeah, I could speak on this for hours. My birthday party theme was everything is connected, and we ran a class session on it on our school's learning platform. So, so everything is connected. To me, that is just like my life thesis that applies not only in the human web of connections and our humanness, which to me is that central component. When we talk about this capacity for change and how it's made possible through working together and how much further we can go when we use our combined complementary strengths. But it's also so present for me when I write curriculum in the interdisciplinarity of it. And I think this is probably anticipating a couple of questions down the line, but a hope that I have for the direction that we're moving in is to think about all of these relevant issues. As Virgil mentioned, we have these disruptions and climate change and all of these issues that are so prevalent in our day-to-day lives and all over what we see in our social media feeds. And then we talk about AI and all these solutions. I want all of it to be approached in conversation, in tandem, and for the way we talk about AI to be grounded in these broader contexts. And I think one practical way we can do that is by really reinforcing this interdisciplinarity in our curriculum. And so we learn about AI as a social and emotional phenomenon embedded in our arts and humanities curriculum, using that as a lens through which we can create these solutions, and recognizing how everything has these, secondary and tertiary effects. And so connection really is at the heart of how Minerva has reoriented the way I see not only the world around me, but myself and the people that I love. Yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. So this could be to any of you. So when discussing the relevance of learning, learners must be a part of the conversation. Josh, you talked about this. What part of school feels most connected to your life right now? And what's one change you would make to help school feel more relevant?
Yeah, I think when I hear the word relevance to my life, I immediately jump to what's gonna help me in my career? And math, of course, that's an amazing thing, and that's gonna help me because I wanna be an engineer. But beyond that, I think when we have agency, it helps me learn how to learn. A lot of the times, students love saying, how is this ever gonna help me? How is calculus ever gonna help me in the real world? But you're not always just learning calculus, you're learning how to learn. You're learning how to problem solve. In English, we're learning how to articulate. And that's what we're getting from this. And that holds so much relevance in my life because I'm having control over my education. I can make decisions on my own. I don't always need a teacher or somebody else, an adult, spoon feeding me directions and stuff like that. I have initiative, and I have the ability to take control of things beyond the classroom.
Right.
Something in my school that makes me feel connected to the real world or whatever is my relationship with my peers and the teachers at my school. It's like, sorry, I'm nervous. The relevance of it is you have many communications. Look at all these people in the room right now. I wouldn't have been here if I wasn't communicating with my principal of what's going on and what's happening. I wouldn't have this amazing opportunity if I wasn't communicative with every single teacher I had, asking them, what can I do? How can I do this? How can this help me in the future? It's really relevant to my future and what I want to do.
Great, great. And Serenity, not to put you on the spot, but I want to start with you this time, all right? Okay, and and as we plan for the future of learning, because you talked about the future just now, I mean, it must serve all of you and the students who will follow you, right? And what's one hope you have for the future of learning?
Ooh, this one's my favorite question. So one hope I have for the future of learning is it's okay to make mistakes. Mistakes are your reasoning to do better. Your mistakes are, it's okay. It's okay to make mistakes. I've always had a problem with that. I always believed that I had to be perfect no matter what. I can't get anything wrong. And that's just put a lot of burden on me to be perfect. But then coming to New Orleans, I've learned that it's okay to make mistakes because this is how you learn. This is how it helps you with life and so on and so forth.
Great, that's fantastic. Something you want to add? Josh, you want to add something to it?
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna reshape the question a little, and I'm gonna say, instead of so much of what do we hope for the future of learning, what do we need for the future of learning?
Yeah.
How are we gonna do that?
Yeah.
We're all here because we care about our students. We want what's best for them. But we're not gonna get there by hoping for things. We're gonna get there by taking action with things. And and through action, we're gonna create change. And that change is what we all wanna see. And when we finally see that change, we're gonna have mindset shifts. And in that mindset shifts, there's not gonna be hierarchies in classrooms no more. There's not gonna be competitiveness in classrooms no more. There's gonna be agency in classrooms where we all work towards a goal together.
Yeah, yeah. Josh, that's great. That's great. And so thinking about that, what would some of those actions be? Or should they be?
Expand a little bit on that.
Yeah. So you said, like, let's not hope, let's take action, right? So and I know you've had some experiences in your current education that could become a part of what becomes normal for lots of students. But as you talked about, just kind of taking action, say, this is what you need. Based on what you need, what should some of those actions be?
Yeah, it requires pretty much everybody in this room to do a little bit of self-reflection and be uncomfortable. It's
that means say it again.
It's easy to just get rid of a system and, throw it in the trash. But the hard thing is rebuilding it from within, taking the time. It's gonna be slow. You're not gonna see this change right away, and you're gonna have failure repeatedly. But if you're here for students' best interest, you need to continue to take that action. And despite, when it fails, when everything crumbles, you don't give up, and you're like, what's the next thing, right? And in that action, students need to be centered. And it's gonna be uncomfortable putting students ahead of you when you have so much experience in this field. And yeah, I think just keeping students at the center of learning.
I told you, I told you they are amazing. They are amazing. Emma, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think my hope and need to that point is that education will remain deeply human. And I think as we see the promise of so many emerging technologies day to day, be it AI or VR or any other acronym, I think recognizing the ways that humans can contribute cognitively in capacities that aren't available to machine cognition. And not only does this, I think, shift the onus of trying to keep up with AI, as often feels like the pressure coming into the workforce or graduating university and feeling like efficiency is the measure of your value, but recognizing how we can complement machine cognition with our unique ways of embodied, relational, imaginative thinking. And I have a lot of thoughts on how the arts and humanities can enable that on a practical level. And I think the other way to center humanness in education, the flip side of that coin, is in our pedagogy and in the ways that we can relate to one another and engage deeply with the experience of being human beings in this world, in our unmediated encounters, and those ways of interacting with our environments that do cultivate care, because it is through the direct experience of our environments and each other that we become to develop these qualities of stewardship and responsibility, I think. And I think care, to me, is that driver of the responsible, not only acquisition, but application of knowledge. And I think that can only be done through recognizing our deep humanness and the ways that we collide with one another in our physical spaces.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, well said. Well said. And we talked about AI as a driver of change, and this is to any of you. What role should students play in decisions about AI, about using AI in schools?
So a role that students should play when using AI in school is that they should know, AI is to support your work. You shouldn't use it independently where you're just not thinking at all. AI is supposed to help you and support you, not do your whole work or your whole project. It's to help you gather information where you can't get it anywhere else. And that's what I think.
Fantastic. Josh, anything?
No.
Emma?
I come back to students being a part of these discussions in the way that it's so evident how much value there is in that already, even from hearing from Serenity and Josh. And I think the way that we can continue to ground those conversations in the broader context of these other subjects and think about, when we learn how to use AI or VR, it's not just this tool, and we're not just learning how to navigate this future we're inheriting, but we're critically thinking about how to actively reshape and reimagine it for more equitable. And these systems, I think, offer a lot of promise, but only within the broader system redesign that offers equitable access to these tools as well. So I think we need to be thinking about it on all of those levels.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. And so to either of you, what do you wish your school had prepared you for that it currently doesn't or hasn't?
I think of something a lot of teachers say, and that's failure is okay. And it is. It 100% is. It's a part of learning. But teachers never prepare you for how to fail. They never teach you where to go from when you fail. When you hit that wall, when you hit that roadblock, I don't know where to go from there. And to be fully transparent with a lot of you, there was a time where I failed multiple classes, and I had administrators, teachers telling me, you need to pass this class, you need to do this. But they didn't tell me how to do that. They didn't accompany me along that path. And, I was a kid, I'm 14, 13 years old. I didn't know, I was a little kid, what business did I have finding my own way to figure out how to get from the bottom to, passing a class now? And, when you have that, it does nothing but dig kids in a deeper hole. And when they realize, let me really do something with my education, it's hard for them to get out of it because they feel like they've dug themselves so deep into it already. And that's where we need to have a serious, conversation with somebody of what is failure in today's system? And I encourage all of you to think about that. What does failure mean in today's system? Because it does nothing but breed competitiveness and hierarchies within ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We value, getting that A over having a B and really understanding what we just learned.
Yeah.
And instead of, really trying to process this information and learn it, we'd rather pass that class or do whatever. But if we reshape the way and, redefine what failure means, kids can then learn. And, you can't even blame the kids, because what does failure mean in today's system? It means you're sacrificing your future. If I fail a class, I'm not gonna get a scholarship. I'm not gonna go to college. It's my identity too on top of that. I lose my identity when I fail. I'm no longer, a smart student. I'm no longer an agentic student. I'm a failing student. And it starts with the teachers. How am I gonna help them, and how am I gonna reinforce them in their path of getting back from failure?
Yeah. Well said. Serenity, did you want to add something to that?
I was gonna say like taxes or something.
Really, I believe that students should learn what they should expect once they go into adult life. But that's hard, How are you supposed to teach a teenager what they're gonna expect in adult life when in reality they don't really care? Students right now, or teenagers, whatever, they don't really care for their future as they should be. And I think that schools should help them figure out what they want to do, pinpoint what they want to do, and help them guide them through it, but not all the ways to they have to depend on them. It's a way for them to be independent and find what they can do, what purpose they have, and whatnot.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And Josh, you and Serenity have talked about like this notion of like failure, and failure almost as learning, right? And I think more broadly, that's not just with students. That's also with the adults who are in buildings trying new things, with, a lot of times without the support needed in order to try out that new thing. But I just think this notion of failure as learning is so critically important as we think about the future, right? And so talk a little bit about, now we've gone to the side that what we hope it had prepared you for. Now can you talk about instances where there were experiences that actually helped you think forward, or help you solve a problem, or it impacted your thinking in terms of what you may want to do next? So are there school experiences that actually propelled your learning or your thinking in any of your experiences? Emma, you can start.
I have like two possible branches here. One, I think, part that has been so transformative for me about my education at Minerva, and is the reason why I'm at Minerva Baccalaureate trying to like spread it even further, is the notion of transfer in learning, which was this core tenet. It was how we were assessed. It was like the total of our diploma score, and it was interwoven throughout our entire curriculum. So we had a full like skills taxonomy. At the high school level that I work with now, it's composed of 27 cross-disciplinary learning outcomes, and these are introduced in one subject and then continually returned to space practice, science of learning, throughout all of the rest of the subjects throughout the 3 years that the students are in high school. And an example is patterns, and so this is all about pattern recognition. So a student might learn it when learning ratios in math, and then they might return to it in poetry and rhyme schemes in an English language arts class, and then again in looking at patterns of migration in sub-Saharan Africa. And so through repeated return in these prompted and then eventually in their own unprompted contexts, students learn how these skills are not only applicable in the first subject or the second subject, but are really, the true goal is to transfer it far beyond the classroom. And it's like so deeply ingrained into my brain now that I will be like journaling on the weekend and I'll start to like recognize a pattern in my behavior and I'll like write hashtag patterns and do a little footnote in my journal. So it's just become a part of my own like brain taxonomy. And I think, so the point of transferring learning outside of the classroom as the goal of education is one that's completely transformed how I have seen my learning and also can understand what I've learned in retrospect, like about calculus, for example. And the other side I think I was thinking of is in relation to the arts and humanities as a lens to enable that reimagination and that reshaping beyond just like the passive acquisition of tools. And I think back to like my global history class in Minerva when I learned about Trio's historical silences with Professor Carl. And I think about how now it wasn't just the memorization of the theory at all, but the content was a vehicle for thinking about how silences appear in all areas of our social lives and structures. And now when I write like science curriculum, I'm trying to be attuned to the silences in the readings that I'm assigning to students. And so really the ability to transfer knowledge outside of that original context has been so core to who I am and hopefully who I'm becoming too.
Yeah, thank you. I want to, Emma, you said something as you were providing that response, and you talked about content being the vehicle. Can you say a little bit more about how that's operationalized in your work?
Yeah. I have so many examples. So talking about patterns, back to that one. So for example, like students will be learning about migration in sub-Saharan Africa in a world history or world cultures class, but that is not the point, and they are not at all graded or tested on their ability to regurgitate the dates and places behind that. And especially in a world with AI and we see this incredible access to information, we know that that is not the goal of education anymore. And I think as systems have already in the past decade, we were talking about this earlier, reoriented away from content like fairly successfully in the work that all of you have done, such that competency-based education was a term that I learnt a few months ago because it to me is that water that I'm been completely immersed in. And so I didn't realize as I was learning pattern recognition that that was a skill and that this was what I was being assessed on. And this is what is the measure of my learning, not my ability to sit down in an exam and just regurgitate dates, because as we know, that isn't the relevant learning for students in classrooms today. And so I think I want to give credit to all of you for the work that you've done in the past decade or more in making that shift to skills-based education and away from content, whereby content can just serve as the spark and inspiration for the analysis and acquisition of these deeper transferable skills.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So we are all living through disruption and change. I mean, and all of you talked about that. And from extreme events like COVID, to more moderate occurrences like numbers of days off due to extreme weather, as an example. How do you think schools should respond to unexpected challenges?
Well, what I think is that communication is a very big thing, especially with events like that. Like during COVID-19, everyone had to go online, but some parents didn't know that. So some parents would bring their students to the school when there should be a lockdown happening. So I believe that communicating as fast as you can to the parents is really important, especially like in New Orleans when there's hurricanes. How are we supposed to know if we're supposed to stay inside or go outside? The school's gonna communicate that to us, whether if school's gonna be online or if we're gonna go back, and it should be done fastly, but yet still thought about ways like other ways, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Josh, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think to kind of tie this back to agency, when you instill that in your kids, they're ready for any unexpected challenge past high school, right? When you have agency, it's not necessarily a thing that you carry with you 1 through 6 period, but but it's something that you carry with you 12 a.m. to 12 p.m. It's a skill set. I always say it's like a universal tool, right? I could use it whenever I want. And when you have that in your kids, you don't always need to be there for them, right? You don't need to spoon feed them or anything like that. They can do things on their own. I said it a little bit earlier, but like we teach our kids how to have initiative, and we teach them how to respond to these unexpected challenges like COVID-19 or something like that. I know I can still thrive in that because I know how I learn best. And that's something that we need to teach our kids. We need to be a partner in their learning and say, let me see how he learns, and then let me show him how he learns. Because a lot of the times, we don't always know how we learn. And when we know how we learn best, we can learn anything.
So, Josh, I know when we had an earlier conversation, you gave some examples of how you are a partner to some of the educators at your high school around learning. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we always say that we're partners in learning, right? There is no hierarchy. The principals aren't above the teachers aren't above the students. We're all on the same level playing field, because at the end of the day, we're all learners. We're all in a process of learning. And me having capital over my learning means that I have choices and I have say in what goes on in my school. We're the recipients of this information and of this education, so it matters what we say. We know how we're processing that information more than a teacher. At the end of the day, that's the truth. A teacher will never know how much we're understanding this information unless we can give them input. And in that, we can build lessons together. We can build plans together. I can give them feedback, and I know my teachers are going to be okay with that. I can say, this lesson didn't work for us. Okay, Josh, how are we going to make it better tomorrow? What are we going to do now? Or what are the other kids saying about it, And when we have that transparency in schools, it creates that agentic environment in the whole classroom.
Huge shout out to your educators, your principal, and your teachers for setting up that structure for you. Anyone want to add anything else to this conversation? It's really like no. Well, yeah. So one thing, and I know we're getting to our time, and they warned us about the timer up here and said that don't let it count down to 0. So the one thing that I'm taking away from this, and I've been removed from leading a system now for the better part of 3 years, after spending some 30 years in education, and people would ask me all the time, like, do you miss the work? I surprise them when I say no. I don't miss it at all. But sitting up here with these young people today, the first time I have missed the work and missed being associated with young people like yourself. And so I'll invite all of you to reach out to these 3 young people who will be here throughout the symposium and talk with them. Get a perspective. Listen to many of their recommendations, some of which they didn't have time to share up here because we are running out of time. But nonetheless, I want you to benefit from what they are here to do for the next several days. So with that, I want Serenity to thank you, Josh to thank you, Emma to thank you for being panelists today. Please join me in thanking our panelists.